this week as I've thought about presentation software and PowerPoint more specifically. I've thought about how I address my 8th graders as we begin talking about PowerPoint and computer science. As they've come through school, they've pretty much done anything and everything they want to with PowerPoint, and there were no rules. And so we talk about that. We also talk about how the teachers in our school can tend to be a poor example on how to use PowerPoint. And I explain to the students this is no fault of the teacher. The teacher did not have technology when they came through school, nor have they been trained specifically in it, and they're using tools without training, and so they shouldn't be upset with their teacher. I also tell them, you guys want the notes, and you want the teacher to write it down word for word because you're so afraid you're going to miss something. And so a lot of times the teacher is using it to accommodate you. Anyway, we go on from that and we talk about some rules on how to make a good PowerPoint is simply by keeping it as simple as possible. No more than 6 to 7 lines per slide, with no more than 6 to 7 words per line, and to also limit themselves to 10 slides, using very little animation unless it's truly needed. And I show them an example of when they put a lot of video or a lot of animation into their graphics, how it looks as opposed to a very simple one. And I also show them when I don't put word for word on that slide, how much they have to pay attention to me instead of looking at the slide. So those would be some tips on how to keep a simple and effective PowerPoint presentation. I do realize that there's times that video or graphics need to be used, but they do need to be limited. I also explain to my students that they need to take into consideration their audience. Where are they going to be when they present? And they need to take that in consideration so they know whether to have a darker background or a lighter background, depending on the lighting in the room they present. I also explain to them how the colors that are on their screen is not necessarily the colors that will be on the screen when they project through an overhead projector, and how luminance play a role in that. And I also talk about rehearsing their time. If they're going to put a transition in it, they need to make sure they allow themselves time to speak, but not so much time that the slide does not move on its own if they have the transition, and also to keep the transitions to one style throughout the PowerPoint presentation. As I take a look at different apps or software that's out there, one of the ones that comes to mind is Prezi. Prezi has become well known in the field of education, VoiceThread, and these are good, but would not necessarily be used every day in the classroom in our computer lab setting, simply because we use an office suite. Now when it comes to an iPad, I think that these are Prezi and Keynote are good alternatives, but I also use Quick Office. When I first began using it, I had to pay for it, and now it's free as part of the new iOS 7. And so there are good alternatives out there. Open Office is another feature. Google Docs. Our school's using Office 365 as part of our email system, and so now our students have some options that are available. So there are some good alternatives, and of course Office 365 is PowerPoint, but having it in the cloud versus on the local computer. I hope that this information will benefit you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what some of your knowledge that you gain throughout the week on PowerPoint or some of your experiences. And I hope that we all can set a better example for our students overall when it comes to using presentation software. Thank you.